Have you ever wondered what happens after you move into a nursing home? Maybe you've asked yourself, will I be safe? Will I lose my freedom? Will my family visit as often as they promise? These questions can keep you up at night, especially if you, or someone you love, is thinking about making such a life-changing decision. I'm here today not just to share my regrets, but to give you the truth no one talks about until it's too late. At 82, I thought I was making the right choice by moving into a nursing home. My family meant well, and I believed I'd get the comfort and care everyone promised. But behind the polished brochures and well-meaning words, there's a reality that many seniors only discover once it's too late to turn back. In this video, I'll reveal the 6 hardest truths I wish someone had told me before I made that move. You'll learn how small freedoms slip away, why loneliness can sneak up even if you have family nearby, and how quickly your health and independence can change. Most importantly, I'll share what you need to know if you want to protect your dignity and keep control over your own life for as long as possible. If you care about your future, or the future of someone you love, don't miss a single moment of this video. These lessons could make all the difference. Stay with me until the end. If you are not subscribed, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. Regret 1. Losing my independence. The biggest, most painful shock I experienced after moving into a nursing home wasn't the small, cramped room or the rigid meal times. It wasn't even the unfamiliar faces of people I barely knew. No, the deepest wound came from the heartbreaking realization that I had lost control over my own life. The independence I once took for granted had quietly slipped through my fingers. Before moving in, my life was shaped by my own choices. I was the master of my days. I decided when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend every moment. Whether that meant going for a leisurely walk in the fresh air, cooking a favorite meal from scratch, or simply sinking into my beloved chair with a book that had comforted me for years. Those routines were more than habits. They were my freedom, my identity. But inside that nursing home, everything changed overnight. My time was no longer mine to command. The day was dictated by someone else's schedule. Breakfast came whether I was hungry or not. Lights out happened whether my mind was calm or racing with thoughts. And the simplest act, like stepping outside for a walk, became a process requiring permission, patience, and the availability of a staff member to accompany me. Decisions I had once made instinctively, what to wear, when to eat, even how to spend a quiet afternoon, suddenly felt like rare privileges handed down to me rather than basic rights. I remember that first week so vividly. Waking up in a bed that felt foreign beneath me, stretching out my arms to grab the book I'd been reading at home, only to realize it wasn't there. Looking around, I was met not by the warm walls I had decorated with memories, but by cold, sterile paint and furniture chosen for utility, not comfort. The chair I had adored, the little trinkets and photos that made a house a home, they were all gone. And in that moment, an overwhelming loneliness settled in. This was no longer my home. I was no longer the person steering my ship. What hurt the most was the brutal truth that once you surrender your independence, reclaiming it feels almost impossible. You adapt because you have no choice. You stop questioning the fixed menu. Stop pushing to take a walk whenever the mood strikes you. You learn to fit into their system, even as it erodes the very essence of who you are. And somewhere along the way, in that quiet surrender, you begin to lose yourself. That loss of freedom, of dignity, of the simple joy of choice, is a grief that runs deep, one that I carry with me every day. Regret 2. Feeling forgotten. One of the most painful and heartbreaking realities about moving into a nursing home is the sinking realization that life outside those walls doesn't pause for you. It keeps moving, busy, loud, full of commitments and distractions. And somehow, you start to feel like you've been left behind, fading into the background of everyone's lives. When I first made the move, my family promised me they'd visit often. Their words were like a warm blanket, wrapping me in hope and comfort. I clung to that promise, believing that despite the change, I'd remain an important part of their everyday lives. At first, things seemed hopeful. My daughter showed up once a week, her smile brightening the dreary rooms, and my grandchildren came by on weekends, their laughter echoing through the halls and reminding me of all the joy I had once known. But as the months slowly slipped by, those visits began to dwindle. The weekly daughter visits became phone calls, a voice through a line, distant and fleeting. My grandchildren got swept up in their busy schedules, school, work, and friends. Holidays, which once were the brightest days filled with love and connection, turned into silent, empty moments. Plans were made with enthusiasm, but were too often broken or postponed. And there I was, sitting alone in the common room, watching others just like me, eyes fixed on the door, silently wishing, hoping, praying that today might be the day someone would remember us, really see us. It's not that my family stopped loving me, not at all. Life's relentless pace simply swept them away. And when you're not physically present every day, it becomes so easy for even the people who care the most to assume you're okay. Why? That you're adjusting fine, that you don't need as much attention anymore. But the bitter truth is this: the longer you live inside a nursing home, the easier it is for people to forget how deeply you still long for their presence, their touch, their reassurance that you still matter. I'll never forget one cold evening, sitting quietly in my room, phone in hand, wrestling with a wave of loneliness and hesitation. Should I call my son? Would it be a burden? Would I sound desperate or needy? Would it remind him that I'm here, waiting, sometimes painfully waiting, for a visit that might never come? My heart ached with that weight, so I put the phone down, swallowing the lump in my throat. And in that moment, it all hit me, the cruel truth of my new life. Days passing in silence, a fading presence, the aching hope that someone, anyone, would remember to include me. If you or someone you love is thinking about moving into a nursing home, I urge you to ask yourself honestly, are you truly prepared for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you become out of sight, it's heartbreakingly easy to become out of mind. Regret 3. Losing my sense of purpose. When I first made the difficult decision to move into the nursing home, I believed I was simply changing my address, a new place to live, perhaps a bit more convenient or safer. What I didn't fully understand at the time was that I was also unknowingly giving up a vital part of my identity, my very reason for living. At home, every day was filled with meaning, no matter how small the task seemed. I had responsibilities that anchored me, a garden that needed watering, a cozy kitchen where I brewed my morning coffee just the way I liked it, a little corner I took pride in keeping tidy. These simple routines weren't just chores, they were the threads weaving purpose into the fabric of my days. They gave me something to look forward to, a reason to rise with the sun and keep going, even when the world felt heavy. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. But in the nursing home, that purposeful rhythm slowly slipped away. Meals were prepared and served to me without a second thought. The cleaning was done by someone else's hands, and the plants, those living things I once cared for so lovingly, were no longer mine to nurture. At first, I tried to convince myself this was a relief. No more worries, no more duties. Just rest. And I craved rest. But as the weeks turned into months, a hollow grew inside me. The days stretched endlessly, like shadows without substance, filled with waiting and quiet silence. I felt adrift in time, as if my life's story had paused and left me behind. I saw this emptiness mirrored in the eyes of other residents, once vibrant souls now quietly resigned to sitting and staring, counting down the hours. There was George, an 84-year-old man who had spent his life as a carpenter. I used to hear stories about his hands, strong and steady, building, fixing, creating with pride and joy. But here in this place, those hands lay idle, resting in his lap like forgotten tools. His spirit seemed to wither a little more each day, robbed of the craft that had once defined him. "I feel useless," George confided one afternoon, his voice barely above a whisper. And in that moment, I felt a deep ache of recognition. Because when we lose what we care for, when there's nothing to strive for, nothing to nurture or build, life's colors fade. The mind slows, the body follows, and the heart grows heavy with loneliness. You become not a person, but just another resident in a place where time drifts, but true living feels absent. That loss of purpose, it's not just about tasks or routines. It's about losing the very thing that makes us feel alive, that keeps our spirit burning brightly, even in our later years. And that loss, more than anything else, is the regret I carry with me every day. Regret for declining health faster than expected. Before I decided to move into a nursing home, I honestly thought I was doing pretty well for my age. I wasn't exactly training for marathons or anything, but I had a good rhythm going. I could still take care of myself without much trouble. I'd go for gentle walks around the neighborhood, prepare my meals with care, and keep little daily routines that gave me purpose. Simple things like grocery shopping or stretching each morning weren't just tasks. They were my way of staying connected to life, my way of reminding myself that I was still capable and independent. Even pacing around my home to keep my legs strong felt like a quiet victory. But the moment I moved in, everything shifted in ways I never expected. At first, it felt like a relief. Meals were brought right to me, no more standing for long hours in the kitchen, no more dragging myself out to the store. If I needed help, all I had to do was press a button, and someone would be there in minutes. It seemed like a luxury, something I deserved after all those years of managing on my own. Yet what I didn't realize then was how dangerous that ease would become. The less I did for myself, the faster my strength slipped away. My legs, once sturdy and reliable, started feeling stiff and weak. I found myself sitting more, telling myself it was okay to rest just a little longer. But a little soon turned into hours, and those hours turned into days. And before I even recognized it, standing up from a simple chair felt like climbing a mountain. The muscles I had carefully nurtured for decades began to vanish almost overnight. It was heartbreaking to witness my own body betraying me like that. It wasn't just me, either. Around me, I saw the same heartbreaking pattern unfold. Friends who had walked in on their own 2 feet now relied on wheelchairs. People who once carried themselves with pride now needed help with the most basic tasks. It was as if the more assistance we were given, the more dependent we became. The nursing home, meant to be a place of care and comfort, often felt like a slow trap for vitality. I still remember my neighbor Alice so vividly, an 81-year-old woman full of life and spirit when she arrived. She was fiercely determined, insisting she wouldn't let age define her. She took daily walks around the facility's gardens, laughing and chatting with anyone who would listen. But after a few months, her steps became slower and more cautious. She swapped her confident stride for a walker, and then, much too soon, for a wheelchair. One afternoon, she turned to me with tears in her eyes and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." And in that moment, I felt the truth of her words deep in my soul. The harsh reality is this: when you stop using your body, you start losing it. Movement isn't just a physical act, it's survival. But in a nursing home, where everything is designed to make life effortless and comfortable, it's all too easy to fall into the trap of inactivity without even realizing it. If only I had understood that sooner. If only I had fought harder to keep moving, to push myself through the discomfort and fatigue. Because every step I took, every stretch I made, was a stand against losing myself. So if you or a loved one is considering a nursing home, I urge you to ask yourself this honest question. Will you still have the strength, the motivation, and the will to keep your body active when everything around you is designed to make things easy? Because once you slow down too much, getting back up is a battle far harder than you ever imagined. Regret 5. The loss of privacy and dignity. One of the hardest realities I didn't fully grasp before moving into a nursing home was just how deeply my sense of privacy would be stripped away. At home, my space was truly mine, a sanctuary where I could close my bedroom door and feel a comforting sense of solitude. I could sit in quiet reflection or simply breathe without interruption. Everything was on my own terms, and that feeling of control was priceless. But stepping into the nursing home, I quickly realized that privacy is no longer a given. It becomes a rare and precious luxury. From the very first day, I felt like I was under a microscope, always being watched, monitored, and managed. Staff would come in and out of my room on their own schedule, often without much warning. Scheduled room checks meant that I rarely had a moment just for myself. Shared common spaces offered little refuge from the constant presence of others. Even the most basic, intimate moments like getting dressed or using the bathroom no longer felt personal. They required someone else's help and presence. And as much as I understood they were there to assist and care, it was heartbreaking to surrender the independence I had cherished all my life. I vividly remember those early days, grappling with the bitter reality that I now had to ask permission for things I once did without a second thought. Want to take a shower? You might be put on a waiting list until help arrives. Need to use the restroom? Sometimes pressing the call button meant waiting, frustrated and vulnerable, far longer than anyone should have to. Meal times became another reminder of lost freedom. If I didn't like the day's menu, tough luck. Choices that once felt so natural and personal were now restricted, dictated by someone else's rules. And then there were the roommates. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have a private room. Sharing a space with a stranger, someone you never chose, can feel invasive and disheartening. While I was lucky to have a kind and considerate roommate, I heard stories that tore at my heart from others who weren't so lucky. Some lived with roommates who were loud, unclean, or suffered from cognitive challenges that made rest and peace nearly impossible to find. No matter how much you try to decorate or personalize the room, to bring a sense of home into that shared space, it's never quite the same. It never truly feels like yours. Losing dignity is a wound that cuts far deeper than most realize. I didn't understand how much of mine I would have to give up until I was already living the experience. When people knock on your door but don't always wait for a response before entering, when you're talked to not as a person with feelings and history but as just another patient, when your days are regimented by schedules set by others, something inside you quietly breaks. You begin to feel less like yourself and more like a number on a chart, a name in a ledger. It's a slow, painful erosion of identity. If you or your loved ones are considering a nursing home, please take a moment to reflect deeply. Are you truly ready to give up the privacy and control that have been yours your entire life? Because once those are gone, reclaiming them is almost impossible. That loss stays with you in ways you never imagined, and it changes how you see the world and yourself forever. Regret 6. Realizing it's harder to leave than you think. When I first made the heart-wrenching decision to move into the nursing home, I clung to a fragile hope that this would be temporary, just a brief pause in my life's journey. I kept telling myself, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't feel right, I'll just go back home. It felt like dipping my toes into cold water before plunging in, a test rather than a commitment. But what no one prepared me for was the crushing reality that leaving once you're inside is far more complicated, emotionally, physically, and financially, than I ever could have imagined. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. In those early days, everything seemed deceptively simple. The nursing home staff was kind, the rooms were clean, and the routine predictable. It was easy to believe I could just pack up and return to my old life whenever I wanted. My home, the place where I had lived for decades, was waiting for me, or so I thought. But as time passed, I began to see that my house was no longer the sanctuary I remembered. It sat quiet and empty, slowly becoming a stranger to me. From miles away, I tried to keep up with maintaining it, but it was overwhelming. The bills, the repairs, the garden that once brought me so much joy, all of it became a distant concern. My children, who loved me dearly and wanted the best for me, started making decisions without asking. They sold furniture, donated belongings, and even talked about renting out the home to help cover expenses. Their intentions were kind, but it felt like my past was slipping away, piece by piece, without my consent or presence. When I finally gathered the courage to say, "I want to come back home," I was met with hesitation, worry, and even gentle resistance. "Are you sure you can handle it alone?" they asked. "It might be safer here, where you have help around the clock. We just want you to be safe." Their words came from love, but deep down, I sensed their fear. Fear that I might fall, that I might struggle, that I might not be able to care for myself anymore. And the truth was, I wasn't the same person who had left. The months spent in the nursing home, where meals were prepared, laundry done, and walking minimal, had taken their toll on my body. My muscles weakened, my balance faltered, and the independence I cherished started to slip away. Suddenly, the thought of living alone felt terrifying, like standing on a fragile ledge with no safety net. I was scared of falling, scared of being lonely, scared of failing. This fear became a cage, keeping me locked in place. As I spoke with others who had taken this path, I realized my experience was far from unique. Many who enter nursing homes do so with the hope of a short stay, only to find themselves trapped by circumstances beyond their control. The longer you stay, the more daunting it feels to re-enter a world that has moved on without you. Some have their homes sold while they're inside. Others see their savings drained by the high cost of care. And before long, that life outside the walls becomes nothing more than a fading memory. This is the part no one talks about. The heartbreaking truth that moving into a nursing home feels like a choice you can easily undo, but for most, it isn't. It's a one-way door. The nursing home slowly becomes your entire world, your safe bubble, your new normal. And with each passing day, the outside world feels more distant, more foreign, and more unreachable. If you or a loved one is considering this step, I urge you to ask yourself some hard questions. Are you truly prepared for the possibility that leaving might be far more complicated than you think? Have you considered the physical decline that might come with less activity? The emotional weight of separation from your home? The financial strain that can quietly close doors? Because once you settle in, these barriers can be difficult, if not impossible, to overcome. Final thoughts. Looking back on this chapter of my life, I don't regret growing older. That is a natural, inevitable part of life that we all must embrace. But what I deeply regret is believing that a nursing home was the only path forward. I walked through those doors hoping for safety, comfort, and a renewed sense of community. Instead, I found a place that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my sense of purpose, and even my identity. Does that mean all nursing homes are bad? Of course not. Many provide invaluable care and support that some people genuinely need. But before you decide, take a moment to weigh what you might be sacrificing. Because once you move in, your life, as you've known it, will change forever, and not always in the ways you hope. Thank you so much for watching and taking the time to listen to this deeply personal story. I hope it has given you some important insights about the realities of nursing homes, the challenges, the unexpected difficulties, and the emotional weight that comes with such a big decision. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What is one thing you've learned from this video that really stood out to you? Is there something you feel inspired to bring into your own life or to consider more carefully? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your story could help others who are facing similar decisions. If you found this video helpful or meaningful, please leave a comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Together, we can build a supportive community where no one has to face these tough moments alone. Thank you again, and I look forward to reading your comments. Take care and be well.